Hi there, this is Gianyar with the Bali Business Review today, where I'm going to be bringing you into extra level deep dive using our amazing data science and artificial intelligence technology to make some data-driven decisions about how to make smart property investment decisions. We're going to scan across hundreds of thousands of listings looking for the very best and very worst listings in the marketplace in Bali right now, posted on the leading vacation rental platform. We'll then go and analyze what makes superior guest experiences and also what leading investors understand that less informed investors and less experienced investors miss out on. There's a lot of money to be made from finding out how to find undiscovered gems to finding undiscovered talent as well. Come with me on this deep dive as we explore a vast landscape of both the best and the worst of what Bali has to offer in this first quarter of 2026. Today we're going to go ahead and further our discovery using the Aether 3D spatial map to look around different parts of Bali and compare different regions. Our first line of comparison is going to begin with the two largest clusters of rentals, which is in the Kuta, Canggu, pruning region along the west coast of Bali, and also the central part of Bali in Ubud. So let's go ahead and take a look at each region. So on the right side of my screen, you can see a tall cluster, and guess what looks like a forest of activity here under Ubud. So this is primarily on a north-south corridor that roughly resembles an oval shape here in Ubud, as you can see once again on the right side of my screen. Here on the left side of my screen, as I zoom out, you can see the west coast access as, let's say, the Kuta, Gianyar, Seminyak, and Canggu area, which ends right here towards Tanah Lot. So in the interest of being able to gain more, let's say, clarity over what we're looking at, let's just go ahead and reduce just to the very, very best properties first. So I'm going to limit myself to just looking at the most perfect properties by bringing up the minimum standard to a 5-star review. These are, as you can see, very sparse, but also are quite a contrast to the majority of what's in the marketplace here. Okay, so I'm going to tilt each map so that it focuses better on each region. And what you're seeing on each screen are the very best Airbnb listings. These are the ones that pretty much have only 5-star reviews. So what becomes very curious is once again to see where our maximums are, where are the most outstanding properties. So we can probably click on this one over here. And this is interesting. This is a 1-bedroom tropical villa in the heart of Seminyak. It's gotten 207 reviews, all perfect 5 stars. And this is what the design reflects. It's a clean, cool, minimalist concrete design that embodies pretty colorful and artistic touch with almost I don't know, I guess it looks really good and it's easy to capture on social media. It's got like contrasting colors and a very easy, simple to understand design. And if you'll take a look at it, none of it is actually the white Mediterranean landscape, and it has this really beautiful approach through the corridors to the actual property, Villa Aquila. Okay, so this represents the very best, but it's not just the design that carries this, let's say, superior listing. It's also a very perfect score on almost everything. 5-star communication, check-in, location, and value. That's excellent. That's very, very hard to achieve. And we can take a look at this particular host. So this is Antonius Punky. He is working in a medical field, licensed practitioner. This is actually pretty common in what we see. Those hosts that are self-managing, that have a lot of passion and a lot of energy to do this type of work, often do the very best. So this is an example of a exemplary host. And as you can see, he's been doing this for 13 years and takes his work in addition to, let's say, the prospect of hosting on Airbnb seriously. Also, what's funny is that this person is also a common Airbnb user. You can see that they've been all over the world also as well. And they have astonishingly a complete profile over what they actually enjoy doing. So that's cool too. So it looks like they have a few more listings over here, which are also quite perfect as well, and also similarly designed in this clean, modern aesthetic. Anyways, that's a design that seems to have been appreciated by quite a lot of users here. There's another local maximum over here, and let's go ahead and open that up and take a deep dive inside. Now, this one also has perfect reviews, over 260 reviews, which is incredible, but it goes, as you can see, on the opposite side of the design spectrum. It is very tropical boho. It has wood tones, it has a kind of organic, natural feel to it, and invites a lot of landscaping, plants and gardening inside. It is a much more maximalist approach and looks more like a home. Framed drawings and paintings and a throw cover here with a dome as well. It has a dome at the top. The entire look and feel of it is strongly reminiscent of Bali, which is great. I think this is Tihitakana compliant and celebrates a lot of the craftsmanship and artisanal work that you see in Bali. Once again, if we take a look, we see that Jojo is the host, and Jojo is a super host, also in the top 5% of all the hosts. Perfect on every dimension except for location, which is near perfect as well. Very incredible ability to maintain a very, very high standard across multiple reviews. Okay, let's take a look at this one. This one's a bit of an outlier here. This is Villa Bali Santai. Different design. It's a combination of a traditional Balinese roof, but with a whitewashed look to it. This one has also been around for a while. The 91 reviews and a perfect 5-star review is a very good sign. This host is unfortunately not a super host, which means that they probably have had a cancellation or some other interruption in their record. But as you can see, the design also reflects one of which I think there's a good indication of taste. It's got full amenities, full kitchen, and it looks inviting. And it carries a continuous whitewashed gray theme across all the different dimensions. It also has, I think, spacious and really abundant gardening, which is a really fun feature to have in a tropical climate by picking your landscaping correctly. So that's what's on the good side. Let's pivot over to now Ubud and take a look at what's really rocking in Ubud so far. So there's a few big towers over here. We're going to open those up. We'll open up the first one. This one, perfect reviews, 283 reviews. And as we can see, this one has a fairly more simple approach towards hospitality. You can see the finishings on the furniture are a bit easier to achieve because they're all square and plain. And the color is a little bit oversaturated, but it gets the idea across. Flawless cabinetry, pretty solid. They even have a plinth that elevates the cabinets off the floor, so that's good. Protects against rising damp, and also it's a good feature to keep away rodents, other pesky creatures that might come in. Refrigerator is a little bit less than full size, and there's a water container over here for dispensing water. Mosquito canopy beds, looks good. And then as we look through it, there's quite a lot of pictures of the bedroom, and also this mark of hospitality by showing what they are ready to do for, let's say, a honeymoon decoration, which is always a thoughtful touch. Bathtubs are a bit of an anachronistic feature. They're not so common anymore. And it looks like this shower is partially outdoors as well, which is pretty good. Abundant landscaping and garden features, pool with overflow edges. Altogether, I think a pretty solid Balinese option. So it's maybe surprising to many people who are opting for white Mediterranean designs that, in fact, none of these high performance properties that we've seen so far are actually of the white Mediterranean design. It also could be that the white Mediterranean design is much more recent, so there's probably less completed examples. Okay, let's go ahead and find another local maximum here. Once again, this is another Balinese style villa with a green slate pool. These pictures, I think, probably don't do the experience justice. As you can see, it's a guest favorite, superhost by Nyoman for over 10 years. And if we run down and take a look at the design, pool deck seems a little bit sparse, a little bit empty. They do floating breakfast, which I might actually not recommend. It clogs up the pool and becomes an engineering issue. Look at one more local maximum. There's one up here, and it's the House of Blessings. And so we take a look at this, and this is 154 reviews and Pat Wayan. We can go ahead and scramble inside and take a look. This is a compound property. It means it has a main building and a separate building off to the side. This one takes a look almost like a kind of an interesting contrast between contemporary design, as evidenced by the clean lines, geometrical shapes, but also adding a strong organic touch with the wicker lantern covers and also the rattan furniture here that's probably rattan enclosed over wire steel frame. So the property lends itself to, I think, a very coordinated color palette of grays and also light straw colors, which is interesting because that's something we could learn for our own office design. Generally, you want, as an interior designer, to stick to a color palette of no more than 3 or 4 colors, yeah? So that keeps everything looking alike and intentional, which is an aspect of good design. Got a hanging wicker chair basket over here, perhaps a picture of the host showing their Instagram feature there, which is very cute. So altogether very good. Mr. Wayan or Mrs. Wayan is an excellent host, as you can see, been getting only 5-star reviews, and that's pretty incredible there. Okay, so we've seen essentially the very best of the best here in Canggu and Ubud, but let's kind of take it up a notch and see what the next level looks like. So if we lower our standards to just starting from a 4.9, what we can expect to see is a higher abundance of properties as well. As you can see in both areas, many more properties at least hit a 4.9 standard. And that's very, very competitive. It's very difficult to get a 4.9. If we go down to the next tier to 4.8 on each side, you can see it definitely makes it a little bit more abundant on both the Ubud and the Canggu side. I'll withdraw those boxes so you can see the density there. So you already can see by the, let's say, density of the highest performing properties, how competitive the marketplace is. Those properties that get perfect reviews, of course, will get more frequent opportunities to gain future bookings as well. And so far, it seems like the pattern that most of these are operated by individuals. And this is also something fairly normal if, let's say, an individual wants to take personal care and attention to the way that they are going to deliver hospitality. This is probably the most superior experience possible on a platform like Airbnb. Second to that, in terms of more, let's say, consistent results over a wider number range of properties, is those of a property manager. And property management companies generally start appearing at around the 4.8 and below in terms of their overall, let's say, ability to delight. Nothing beats, let's say, the personal touch and the very human touch of a dedicated host who has nothing else to do but just to look after guests. And that's very hard to achieve. Okay, so let's take a break there and stop, and I'll show you the other side of the equation. Now, instead of looking at winners, let's take a look at what the worst properties look like. As I promised on the previous episode, the worst properties, we can start with going downrange. So we will set no limit on the minimum and just keep on going down to the lowest point possible, okay? So generally speaking, once you get to about the 4-star range, then you start seeing properties that are probably less than, yeah, there we go. Okay, so we'll start from the very bottom at the 4-star range, and I'll tell you why 4 is the actual minimum and not 1 or 0. So on most online platforms, the actual, let's say, average is around a 4.5, and then getting, let's say, a standard deviation or 2 above 4.5 to 4.7 and 4.9 is where better and the very best is. So once you go from, let's say, 4.5 down 2 standard deviations to 4, you're reaching basically the bottom of the barrel. These are properties that basically are probably slated for removal because of market quality control standards that each platform has. So if we're lucky, we might actually find something there, but if we're not, we'll probably just open up null listings. So let's just go ahead and open these up and see what we find, right? So this one is surprisingly still available on Airbnb, even though it has a terrible review for 4 stars. And it looks like cleanliness is really low, accuracy is low, check-in is stable and communication is stable, value is pretty low too. And this is interesting because I would imagine that the only way that this place could be still inhabitable is that it must be very cheap. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the prices there and see what we see. And it's not very cheap at all. It's $48, but for some reason, it still continues to get bookings. There must be something quite special about this particular location. That's probably it. Fairly large number of bookings because of its proximity to the beach. That's kind of hard to actually, let's say, get that location. And let's go ahead and take a look at the most recent reviews that will give us a picture of how, let's say, okay, so January 2026, so that was about 2 months ago. Okay, let's see if we can find any other ones. Maybe let's take a look at this beachfront property over here. And here we go. Here's another beachfront property. It is astonishingly low at 3.86, and the design looks, I guess, like this. What you see here is probably the way that, you know, kind of local housing looks like. Now, I have no problem with local housing. I live in a local house myself, but in terms of a hospitality standard, it's aiming pretty low. Discolored mirrors and these really cheap gimmicks on the wall. And this is cute. They've got a picture of their kid over there and maybe some highlights about the food. But let's see what is actually the real, oh, this is really killing it, right? So the cleanliness is low, complaints about bed bugs, and this is not accurate as all, low check-in, low everything. So this property, let's see when the most recent review for it was. And if we look over here, we can see that the most recent review was almost 2 years ago, okay? So this is probably no longer active, even though it's listed and ranked very low in the spectrum. Okay, let's kind of draw it up over here towards Canggu and see if we can find any particular, oops. Okay, so the sample that we just took a look at, the one that I just clicked on over here, is removed. And this is basically a market control, quality control feature that platforms remove bad listings in order to make sure that more guests get great experiences, okay? So let's see if we can find another one. Okay, this one's also been removed. Maybe we get luck over here. All right. Surprisingly, this is done by a property management company called Listings Bali. They're a superhost, but they probably regret managing this property for sure. So nothing really wrong with the design. It looks like a fairly abundant and complete design with a full kitchen, ample bedroom space, and lots of space. Okay, that looks all right. But let's see what the complaints are. Oh, cleanliness, very low. 4-star on cleanliness, 4.8 on accuracy, check-in not that great, location not that great, value not that great. Let's see what they seem to be retailing for. They have availability. Surprisingly, they have availability, and it's probably because of this. It's probably one of the very few properties you can actually bring up to 7 guests in, and that makes it actually an interesting option for those who are on a budget trip because it's hard to fit 7 people for $113. Okay, now having seen that, let's go to the opposite side and look in Ubud for who are the peak worst properties. This is Villa Mahesa. So Villa Mahesa seems to have, okay, all right, so this is not a good idea, anybody who has an Airbnb listing. You see how all the lead photos are of the bedroom? That probably is very not interesting to anybody who's browsing around. They want to see a good, probably cross-section of the property showing multiple areas. So that's one of the lowest review scores I've seen, a 3.89. That's way below. 3.7 is very, very bad. And poor Kina, she just had a pretty terrible experience. Low on accuracy, really, really low. Low on check-in, low on location, low on value. Okay, 27 reviews. All right, so overall, this is a pretty good location. I think the location 4.2. It's probably a good location. The host just doesn't really explain it. But overall, you can see not a lot of happy guests. And let's go ahead and take a look at the most recent reviews. Once we take a look at this, we can also see that, yeah, not good. Like in all of 2025, they only had 3 reviews, which is a very, very low occupancy. And also, it makes sense, right? Because it's not a very productive listing. Okay, let's keep on going and see if we can find one more. Here's a Hendra Villa over here. Okay, this one's been removed. Market quality control. Okay, this one is the one that's left over. This is probably a room within a hotel. So let's see, it's literally hosted by a hotel. You can see the amount of attention to detail that they have at this point. 3.95, way, way below. 4-star is usually already pretty low. 20 reviews, last review, oh gosh, very terrible, right? These are reviews that you don't want to get, and this is a design. Yeah, these pictures don't really speak too much about what you're really going to get, and I'm really not sure why anybody would book this. It looks like the 5-night minimum. Wow, that's insult on injury, but I suppose a 5-night minimum is a pretty good deal for about $12 a night. Okay, all right, that could explain why it's still even allowed to exist. It's fairly cheap. Okay, so hopefully that gives a bit of both the positive side and the negative side of analysis. You can see in terms of the negative reviews, there's also overall very few, right? And the reason is because there's not that many negative as opposed to positive because the platform sweeps up and removes troubled listings that keep on getting a sequence of negative reviews so that guests won't have to experience it. Properties that are reviewed very negatively are always on the end of the ranking because they are the option in which the platform will not surface unless there are no other options available. So that's also pretty clear. Okay, hopefully this analysis is fun and entertaining and gets us through, let's say, this particular week. And I look forward to seeing you guys On the next BBR, we can go and continue analyzing other areas of Bali as well, such as the Bukit in Uluwatu and Bingin, and perhaps also Sanur too as well, which are kind of like, let's say, new and old regions of Bali for tourism. All right, that's it for this episode of the Bali Business Review. Hope to catch you on the next one.
The Bali Business Review, Aether map in view. Compare the winners and the losers, see what the data do. Got Canggu and Ubud with 5-star pads, it's a paradise. Then the low score villas, gotta check the dirt and check the price. It's a battle for the bookings where the hospitality shines. From minimalist concrete to tropical boho class and designs. Antonius and Jojo are super hosts, they got that perfect touch. The competition's heavy and the guests are asking for so much. Winners get the bookings, losers getting swept away. That's the Aether data map, we'll be back another day.